Welcome to Naked History. You're listening to Unearthed. The Statue of Liberty. An iconic wonder of the modern world.
One of the paradoxes about the Statue of Liberty is it's totally famous and totally unknown all at the same time.
What secrets is she hiding? And why was this landmark built on this particular site?
When people arrive here, you're in awe of Lady Liberty and the New York skyline, and people rarely look down and realize that there's a really rich history below their feet here.
Today, investigators are using pioneering technology to discover the secret inspiration behind her incredible metal design.
She's an amazing statue from the outside, but when you go inside, it's even more interesting.
Following a trail of clues that leads to a lost wonder of the ancient world. Can they solve the question that has puzzled people for over a century?
It is a human face, and so what face did he use?
To solve these mysteries, we'll deconstruct and uproot this mighty monument. We will piece together the secrets of the statue's construction to unearth the astonishing ancient history at the heart of this groundbreaking landmark. At the entrance to New York City stands a mighty guardian, the Statue of Liberty, one of the most famous monuments in the world. Built as a gift from France to America to mark 100 years of independence, she has become an icon woven into the fabric of the United States. But what do we really know about this enigmatic lady?
There are all kinds of unknowns. There are secrets about the Statue of Liberty. There are mysteries, and it's really a lot of fun to try to uncover them.
Looking out over New York from a staggering 265 feet, the statue is an enduring symbol of freedom. Made from 62,000 pounds of the purest copper, supported by an ingenious metal skeleton, erected atop a mysterious 11-pointed star. She tramples on the chains of oppression with her enormous feet. Enlightening the planet with her torch, she's one of the world's most recognizable landmarks. But what was the real inspiration for this magnificent statue? Who is this mysterious lady? This question still baffles the experts today. Historian and author Ed Berenson has spent years trying to unravel the identity of New York's most famous resident.
When we try to figure out what the inspiration for the Statue of Liberty was, we have to make our own interpretations because Bartoldi didn't write down very much.
Today, Ed joins a team from the National Park Service that is using laser scanning technology to create the most accurate ever three-dimensional image of this statue. It's the perfect opportunity to get a detailed view of her face.
I guess for me, seeing it in 3D and close up, it's funny to see how stern her face is. I mean, it's a stern expression on her.
It's true, yeah. It is a stern expression. She's got a lot of responsibility. She represents liberty.
Completed in 1886, the Statue of Liberty was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Bartholdi. Experts believe his statue is modeled on Libertas, the Roman goddess of freedom.
Right from the beginning, the real name of the Statue of Liberty is Liberty Enlightening the World.
The same goddess of freedom also appears on the Great Seal of France. But is there more going on here? At first glance, the statue is a mix of symbolic and classical influences. She carries a torch in her right hand, leading the way to enlightenment. She wears a flowing Roman robe. At her feet lie broken chains, a symbol of freedom from oppression. In her left hand, she holds a tablet with the date of American independence. But underneath the symbolism, hiding below the huge seven-pointed crown that adorns her head, could this be the face of a real person?
What was the inspiration for the face? Was it something that he had in his mind, in his memory, or did he actually have a real human being who was his model? We don't know because he didn't say.
Despite this lack of evidence, many people claim that Bartholdi based the statue's features on a real person. Theories range from his wife to his mother.
When he came to New York in 1871, he wrote to his mother every single day, and those letters have survived.
But in none of his letters does Bartholdi ever mention that she inspired the face of Lady Liberty.
If it had been his mother's face, why didn't he say something to her? I think she would have been pleased.
Ed wants to solve this mystery once and for all.
Kenny,
hi. How are
I'm
you?
Ed. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Good.
Kenny Long used to work for England's Metropolitan Police Force. He specializes in identifying known criminals in large crowds. The tool of his trade is his brain. Kenny is what's known as a super recognizer.
Say, for example, I look at your face. Unfortunately, I'm not going to forget that face now. So I'd never do nothing wrong if I was you.
So you have better abilities than, say, a computer with facial recognition software.
I've recognised someone from the back of their head before for a bank robbery.
His expertise has led to hundreds of criminal convictions. So, in the case of Liberty versus the People, who are the prime suspects?
I've got a number of pictures of people connected to the history of the Statue of Liberty.
Ed starts with the person Bartholdi was closest to.
Charlotte Bartholdi, the mother of the sculptor. And we know that Federico Augusto Bartholdi and his mother were very close.
Next up is another potential candidate.
Bartholdi's wife, Jeanne-Émilie, whom he married late. He was 46 years old when he got married.
Another possibility is that it might not be the face of a woman at all.
Bartholdi's brother, Charles, whom he was very close to, and there was, in fact, recently a theory that Bartholdi used his brother's face.
So out of these potential suspects, who is the face of Lady Liberty? At face value, it's a tall order. Kenny is more used to working with police mugshots than historical photos and paintings.
I want to discount some people first. So looking at this image here,
That's his brother.
look at his ear right there. It's very, very flat, not much detail at all. If you go to the Statue of Liberty and look at the model, it has lots of detail inside the ear.
Right, yeah.
So straight away,
I'm going to take that one down.
you can take that down.
So what does Kenny make of Bartholdi's wife?
The eyes are too close together, the jaw is too rounded. So I don't think there was no inspiration whatsoever from that image
The
at
eyes
all.
are very close together. I
They're
can see
very
that.
close.
That only leaves one prime candidate. Bartholdi's mother.
Wow, there's a lot of similarities. I like in this quite a lot. Looking at both the images now next to the Statue of Liberty, it looks so close. It's just like looking at the same person to me.
It's an extraordinary revelation. Ed believes they may have solved the mystery of her true identity.
I mean, now that you point out these resemblances, which are really convincing, it makes me wonder whether he used his mother's face without quite realizing it.
It's very possible. Very possible.
And which would explain why he didn't mention it to her. And
Because he wouldn't have known, would he?
he wouldn't have known.
The statue's creator may have secretly used a familiar face as his model. What other surprises did he leave behind? Now investigators dig beneath her feet for answers. Why was she built atop an 11-pointed star? And did a lost wonder of the ancient world inspire her once gleaming metal form? National Park Service archaeologist Joel Dukes is on a mission to uncover why this location was chosen.
Could have been at the mouth of the harbor, which is several miles up this way. It could have been on Manhattan at the tip, or even in Central Park. Ultimately, though, they decided on Liberty Island.
So why was Lady Liberty built on this very spot? Hiding in plain sight beneath the statue's feet is a military fort. It's shaped like an 11-pointed star and is far older than the statue and its pedestal. Thousands of precisely carved granite blocks make up its walls, and inside sits the statue's foundations. A massive slab of solid concrete, 20 feet deep and weighing 27,000 tons. But why was it abandoned? And why was the statue built within it? Could the unusual shape provide a clue?
Fort Wood is a star fort, has 11 points on it, and then the interesting thing is that it's unique among the forts in New York Harbor.
In fact, this is the only fort of its kind in the entire United States. So why was the design chosen for this particular site? Joel thinks he's found a clue. The construction team has uncovered a curved wall running alongside the existing star-shaped one.
Here's the island, here's the fort with the 11 points, and the outer wall curved around each of the points like this. What we suspect is that the wall went around the fort at one point.
The more he examines it, the more Joel believes it might be something else altogether.
So what it looks like is this isn't actually a wall. What this is the footer to a support for a moat.
A moat indicates the fort's occupants needed 360-degree defenses, meaning the threat of attacking ships wasn't all they were worried about.
Protecting from a land invasion would have been part of the defenses at this fort.
The fort's unique 11-pointed shape gave defenders a huge advantage, dramatically increasing their fields of fire and reducing blind spots. Cannons positioned on one side of the fort could fire across to the other, hitting anyone attempting to scale its walls. The fort's low profile allowed for thick granite ramparts, protecting it from cannon fire. But the development of more powerful artillery and explosive shells meant the fort was soon outdated, and it gradually fell into disrepair.
The problem with the development of the fortification of New York Harbor was often that once the fort was completed, the technology advanced so far that the fort was pretty much obsolete by the time it was built.
But Joel thinks this unusual and outdated design might be the very reason why the statue was built on this spot.
Once the fort became obsolete, they began to repurpose it for different things such as a barracks and a quartermaster's, and even a lighthouse keeper's quarter was put out there.
Joel believes that because the fort was no longer of military importance, it could be easily and cheaply repurposed, this time as the ideal base for a huge statue.
I think that it was really fortunate to find Fort Wood. I think the star design fits really well with the pedestal and the statue out there on Liberty Island.
The statue's creators had found the perfect plot for Lady Liberty. But had they unwittingly chosen a site of huge archaeological importance? What can brand new discoveries from this site tell us about the history of New York and the United States? And how did they build such a gigantic statue? The Statue of Liberty. It was built on top of an abandoned 19th century fort on a small island in New York Harbor, no longer of military value. But archaeologist Joel Dukes believes the site could hold even more historical importance.
With all the modern development that's going on here in New York City, it's hard to imagine that there's some really amazing history out here.
Buried in the ground behind the statue, archaeologists have made a strange discovery. Underneath the topsoil lie tens of thousands of opened oyster shells. Together, they form a thick layer that stretches in a wide band across Liberty Island, surrounding the statue. The shells couldn't have simply washed up here. So where did they come from? And can they reveal the secrets of this island's past?
This is one of the oyster shells that we've recovered from the site, and 99% of what was recovered here were oyster shells.
It's early morning, and a crew is conducting structural repairs around the statue. So Joel is on the lookout for any more shells that might be uncovered.
The ground's frozen.
Investigators keep artifacts found on Liberty Island here in the National Park Service archives.
So this box is one of 22 from the site, and they hold over 6,800 artifacts that were excavated.
Remarkably, it wasn't just oyster shells that were found. And the discovery of a storage pit convinced archaeologists this waste was man-made.
The material that came out of it, in addition to being oyster, was a variety of man-made objects out of stone and ceramics.
These ancient piles of trash are called middens. But the question is, whose trash is it? And why did these people come to Liberty Island?
One of the most interesting items we find that helped us date the deposit was this small arrowhead made of jasper, and it's one of the clear indicators that they were Native Americans that made this deposit.
Over centuries, the Native Americans exploited the oyster-rich waters and fertile soil, until the arrival of Europeans eventually pushed them out of these lands. But one mystery still puzzles investigators. Why did they choose to live on a remote island rather than the mainland? Joel believes the answer lies on neighboring Ellis Island.
Behind me is the immigration station. Beneath it, we found a shell midden, just like the one that was over on Liberty Island.
Joel thinks these two distinct deposits are a clue to how this landscape looked in the distant past. Scientists unearthed middens not only on Liberty Island, but also beneath the main immigration building on nearby Ellis Island. The alignment of the middens suggests they are part of the same trash heap. It would mean the two islands were once connected to each other, and possibly to the mainland. Thousands of years ago, these islands were just two small hills surrounded by tidal flats and marshes. Over time, erosion and rising sea levels transformed the hills into small islands, right in the middle of the harbor.
Thousands of years, people were coming here. Native Americans seasonally were coming here and exploiting the resources and living here. And I think the whole depth of history here is pretty amazing.
Without realizing it, the statue's creators had chosen a location rich with the history of North America. But how exactly would her creators build such a massive statue? And where did the inspiration for her metal design come from?
Why did it take the form it did? It's not clear. You have to really kind of enter onto a process of discovery in order to figure that out.
The widespread view is that she is based on Libertas, the Roman goddess of freedom. And at first glance, the resemblance is clear. But there's one glaring difference. Her most iconic feature is out of place. The huge seven-pointed crown that adorns her head is never seen on Roman depictions of Libertas. Could her crown unlock the lady's secret identity? Ed thinks Bartholdi was actually looking even further back in time, to a monument that experts believe featured a very similar-looking headpiece.
This is the Colossus of Rhodes, and this was an image from the middle of the 19th century. This is what people then thought the Colossus of Rhodes must have looked like.
The giant statue was one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. 110 feet tall, it was built to represent Helios, the Greek god of the sun. It stood on Rhodes more than 2,300 years ago, but was destroyed just 66 years after it was built.
It was a great statue, a huge statue, carrying a torch with a crown that had spokes on it, and those spokes represent the rays of the sun.
So, is Liberty really a secret homage to the Colossus of Rhodes? To find out, we need to discover what this ancient statue really looked like, rather than relying on 19th century illustrations based on guesswork. On the Greek island of Rhodes, Architect Katerina Manusou has spent decades hunting for this lost wonder. Legend has it the Colossus stood straddling the entrance to the port. But this image is vastly different from the Statue of Liberty. So was it really here? Or could it actually be much more similar to Liberty, both in terms of its appearance and positioning? Scientific examination of the area has persuaded Katerina that the Colossus could never have stood at the harbor. The Colossus was made of bronze, which would have sunk after its collapse. But following extensive searches, no remains have ever been found on the seafloor here. Katerina is convinced the statue did exist. It just wasn't built where most people think. Which means it could have also looked more like the Statue of Liberty than previously thought. Katerina heads away from the harbor entrance, towards the Palace of the Grand Master, overlooking the port. Archaeologists have discovered that this wall encases a much older solid stone slab. It's the perfect size for a huge plinth. The palace was built in the 14th century, long after the Colossus collapsed, but Katerina believes it marks the spot where the huge ancient statue would have stood. Not straddling the harbor, but towering above it, just like Liberty. The legend of the Colossus sees it straddling the harbor with its legs apart. But this is a medieval misconception that has been passed down through time like a game of whispers. With no evidence and ancient descriptions, historians are now certain the Colossus never stood at the entrance to the harbor. Instead, it must have been positioned inland, towering over the harbor on a huge stone pedestal, just like the Statue of Liberty. New York investigator Ed Berenson believes Katerina's theory. He thinks that the Statue of Liberty's creator had already guessed the truth.
We know, and Bartholdi said, that in terms of the structure, the Colossus of Rhodes that straddled the opening of Rhodes, well, that couldn't be real because it wouldn't have been able to stand up, and he understood that.
So is this really where Bartholdi got his inspiration from?
We know that he was interested in colossal statues. He was amazed by them, and he said that he wanted to build something just like that. What Bartholdi did is he amalgamated the two. He took the goddess of liberty and he fused it with the Colossus of Rhodes, and out of that came the Statue of Liberty.
The statue's creator set out to build an ancient Colossus in a modern world. But how did they construct a statue far bigger than her ancient predecessor? And how has she survived so much longer? The Statue of Liberty. Its maker wanted to resurrect the god-sized monuments of the ancient world. Bartholdi's key inspiration, the Colossus of Rhodes, collapsed after just 66 years. So how did he build something even bigger without suffering the same fate? And how did the choice of materials affect how she looks today?
When she first went up, she wasn't green at all. That always amazes me.
62,000 pounds of the purest copper make up the statue's skin, hammered into over 300 plates. Each plate is just 0.09 inches thick. A layer of green patina, in parts as thick as the copper itself, covers every surface. But stripping away 130 years of oxidation reveals the lady's true color. When first built, she would have looked like a gleaming golden colossus of ancient times, towering over 19th century New York. So why did Bartholdi choose copper plates? Especially when the Colossus of Rhodes was built very differently, using the ancient method of bronze casting. Paul Cavanaugh is a veteran metal worker and sculptor.
To make the Colossus, it was necessary for each section to be cast into bronze and then the bronze would be joined together.
Jeff Boccaccio and his team still use the bronze casting method. They have the skills to investigate what techniques it took to build the Colossus.
Okay, up, Greg.
The team uses sand to create a mold.
Up,
Then they pour molten bronze into it.
up, up. Good, stop. Here we go, ready?
It's a potentially dangerous moment.
Back, back.
When it hits the mold, the bronze cools down and takes its inverted shape. Experts believe workers cast the Colossus of Rhodes in large sections. Each stood 5 feet tall and weighed up to 250 pounds. Workers mounted the skin on an internal frame made of iron bars and riveted each large section together. The people of Rhodes used an abandoned siege tower as a scaffold to reach the statue's crown, a dizzying 110 feet off the ground. For strength, the metal was an inch thick below the knees where it supported the most weight. To stop it being top-heavy, it tapered to 1/4 of an inch near the head. But instead of bronze, Bartholdi chose copper, a metal not suitable for casting. Copper meant his workers had to use a special technique called repousser, which involves shaping the metal by hammering from the reverse side.
They created a negative wooden form. Then, in using all sorts of different little techniques, they were able to hammer it into the wooden form and then have it hold its shape so it could be riveted to the inside structure.
Paul assesses the two techniques. He believes that cast bronze is the superior method.
Casting in bronze for a large monument like the Colossus is much better. The Colossus would be a lot stronger than the Statue of Liberty.
When exposed to the elements, copper turns green over time. And compared to cast bronze, copper repousser is weaker and more labor-intensive. So why did Bartholdi choose it? Despite all its flaws, it has one major advantage.
It was much, much less expensive than cast bronze. It was just a technique to save a lot of money.
According to legend, the Colossus of Rhodes was built using captured bronze weapons from a recent war. But Frédéric Bartholdi didn't have this advantage. He was limited by money and had to drum up funds to realize his vision.
The Statue of Liberty was made as a gift. And I think that the way those things work is the person who controls the purse string controls what material is chosen. So Bartholdi had to somewhat go along with that.
Despite it not being first choice, the world has grown to love the statue's green copper tint. And Liberty has lasted far longer than her ancient ancestor, the Colossus of Rhodes, even if she was built using an inferior construction technique. But thin copper sheets are far too weak to support such a massive structure on their own. So what secret methods did her engineers use to ensure she would stand the test of time? For more than a century, the Statue of Liberty has stood proudly on its plinth, watching over New York Harbor. The famous Colossus of Rhodes, on which it was modeled, was shorter and built of sturdier stuff, yet it was destroyed by an earthquake after just 66 years. How did Liberty's engineers ensure she would outlive her ancient Greek ancestor? Veteran structural engineer Donald Friedman is one of America's leading specialists in renovating historical buildings. He's investigating how the Statue of Liberty has stood the test of time.
She's an amazing statue. When you look at her from the outside, you see what everybody has always come here to see. But when you go inside, you see the structure, and it's even more interesting.
Underneath her robe lies a vast hidden lattice of intricate metalwork. A huge central pylon anchors her to the pedestal and acts as a spine for layers of steel girders, supporting a framework of thin metal bars that attach to her copper skin. So how did this seemingly fragile frame make her stronger than anything that had come before? To solve this mystery, Don first wants to understand exactly how the Colossus collapsed.
Nice to see you.
Don works with veteran physicist Neville Reiger, who has been researching the fate of the Colossus of Rhodes for over 20 years.
This is what we think that the Colossus looked like. It stood pretty much with its legs close together. It's certainly not straddled over the harbor.
Neville has built a computer simulation to investigate why it fell.
It would have failed at the ankles, but would have brought the entire structure down. Sure. And that's what they saw lying on the ground for 700 years.
Don believes the Statue of Liberty's creator may have taken this into account.
If you look at a person, we're big in the middle and then we get narrowed down towards the ankles, and that's the weakest part of a statue.
The narrow legs and ankles of the Colossus made it susceptible to collapse. So Liberty was designed to have a wide flowing robe around the base. The robe would make her more structurally sound. That would also help her deal with a more likely threat: strong winds.
The sculpture itself is a very thin copper skin, and even with a good shape and even with the good geometry that the dress gives it, there's still the issue of how do you make this strong enough to withstand the wind pressure that's blowing on it on a day like today, for example.
So why hasn't the wind ripped off Liberty's thin copper skin?
In order to provide the structure for this massive sculpture, the artist employed one of the most famous engineers of the era and arguably the best engineer in France at that time.
Bartholdi recruited a rising star of the construction industry, who would go on to complete the famous Eiffel Tower in France. Gustave Eiffel.
Inside that thin copper skin, you've got a wrought iron braced frame that is the main structure of the statue, designed by the engineer Gustave Eiffel, and it's very similar to the tower that he built in Paris a few years later.
The statue's strength comes from its solid central pylon, made of 4 columns reinforced with crossed diagonal girders. This supports a second steel frame, which attaches to the statue's skin with flexible rods and strips of metal. These strips are held in place with copper saddles, so that the 2 layers move independently. The connections between the skin and the skeleton act as a spring, allowing the statue to sway and flex.
You have potentially a lot of movement of the skin from one side to the other relative to the structure that's in the middle. And if it weren't allowed to move, it would start to rip itself apart.
Back at his office, Don investigates the effects of wind on the statue's skeleton.
This frame is doing what Eiffel designed it to do, which is to take all of this wind load and transmit it down to the base, down to the plinth.
This spring technique was one of the first of its kind, and it paved the way for many other high-rise structures.
At the time that Eiffel designed this is one of the best frames in the world. I mean, this is just an amazing design for the 1880s. Even today, using the materials he was using and with the constraints he had for construction, I'm not sure we could do very much better.
On the outside, the Statue of Liberty resembles the gods of the ancient world. But inside, she is a modern engineering marvel. Her face may have inadvertently been based on a real person, but this great monument has grown in people's hearts and minds to take on a unique identity of her own.
It is what one art historian called a hollow icon. That is, it doesn't have any definite meaning written into it. And so that allows us to speculate, and it also allows the meaning of the Statue of Liberty to evolve with the times.
The Statue of Liberty is the lifetime accomplishment of Frédéric Bartholdi, who overcame colossal obstacles to build an ancient wonder in 19th century New York. Liberty's creator may have taken inspiration from the Colossus of Rhodes, But this iconic lady stands taller and stronger, thanks to the ingenious structural innovation hidden within. The island she calls home is an archaeological treasure trove, rooted in the birth of a nation. Once a gleaming copper leviathan, the Statue of Liberty has evolved to become one of the most important symbols of the modern world. Naked History is brought to you by Element 18. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a comment below and subscribe to our channel for new videos every week.